What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Collision Live. It is me, your host, Daniel, and I am joined at the desk, as I always am, by the birthday crunch to my perfect morning, Mr. Samuel David Kemp. What is up?
Not much, Daniel. It's good to have you back with us, and it's good to be back. We've missed I guess it was just a week.
No, I think we missed a couple weeks. We were on vacation
Was it 2?
a couple weeks ago. I was hanging out with some COVID during the last week. We missed last week. I say we have 2 weeks worth of insights and wise cultural commentary, and
Sage sayings.
So we are just brimming full of things to talk about, and it is going to be an interesting episode. Got some stuff, some interesting stories that I think have like bigger implications for just Christians engaging with culture, and kind of some more some topical stuff, but I think that can apply to more general stuff. And hey, if you're watching our video version, you might notice the subtle little hints that someone here at this table may or may not have just celebrated a birthday.
Yes, and someone is moving in closer and closer to a new decade.
Me and my wife are having some heated discussion about when you enter your lates of your current decade. Hey, I still feel very mid, as people have told me before. But
if that's the case, then I'm in my early.
You're still a young bug. But excited to have you guys join us again. We encourage you guys, jump in the comment section if you have any thoughts on the topics and things we're going to get into. Share your thoughts. Let's have a conversation on this. But why don't we get right into it and kick things off with some cultural conversation. So the first story, kind of topic to get into, is slightly delayed but I think still is relevant because, again, we missed a couple weeks, and that is Jesus Revolution, kind of the latest faith-based film that kind of in theaters, mainstream kind of faith-based film. If you haven't, could you guys check out? I did a review for that when it came out. So if you want to hear my thoughts and have a conversation about what you thought of the movie, I encourage you to do that. So I'm not going to necessarily get into again, Sam has not seen this because, hey,
I have not.
He's
I don't
not
go to
on board.
movies.
Yeah, he doesn't go to movies. He doesn't support those Christian movies. He just watches his dark, gritty television shows because that's the kind of person he is. But we're not going to get into obviously the evaluating the movie. You can check out the review for that. But I do think there is a conversation to be had just as far as kind of faith-based films. Like what makes a success? What are we going for? Is Jesus Revolution a success? What's sort of the conversation going on kind of around it? So a couple metrics to throw out, and then we can kind of get into does this all add up to a success? Is this not a success? What are we going for? The first, which is probably to be expected because it's the case with almost every faith-based film, the critic audience divide, the chasm that always seems to exist between these two polarized groups, where the critics, at least as of today when I pulled these numbers, 56% on the tomato meter on Rotten Tomatoes, so this is a little over half gave this thing a positive review, whereas the audience themselves seem to be a little more forgiving, a little more on board, where, hey, 99%, so there's 1% of people out there that were sitting there shaking their heads and complaining, which would probably be me if maybe I am that 1%. The other kind of metric, which is the movie itself has been like throwing out a lot in like their marketing and kind of celebrating the cinema score, which is maybe a more accurate like audience metric than the tomato meters, because this is, if you're not familiar, the cinema score people like pull audiences as they walk out of the theater. They're standing at the door with their clipboards, and they pull you and kind of get your opinion. And oftentimes it can be a more accurate assessment, although we might get into some of the nuance of why maybe it's not in this case. But hey, based on the cinema score, an A+ for Jesus Revolution. And maybe this is the last stat, again, as of today, domestic gross of $32 million, which I think the movie itself was made for about $7 million, and marketing probably about $15 million total. So this has already made a profit. So financially, this is already a success. But what do you think? 'Cause again, you haven't seen the movie, but like, is this good? Is this like how? If this is like a victory, how like emphatic is it?
Yeah, well, I think it first depends on like what like what do you set up to be a success? Like what defines success for this movie? And I would say that they probably would see this as a success, especially when they're touting that A plus cinema score. Like clearly they made a movie, they've made back their money and some, and I think for them, like, and it's also kind of, I think a lot of people are talking about it, and so for them, I would say they would see it. The makers of the movie would probably see it as a success. Um, Now, if the measure of success is how like impactful in the culture is this, or like, are you winning hearts and minds? Are you, making a difference in Hollywood? That would be more nuanced and probably more of a mixed bag. Like it seems like, again, I haven't seen it, but it seems like it's a better version of faith-based movies. Like it's maybe the best of faith-based movies, but that's still
Yeah,
a
because
subcategory.
that was sort of my general assessment again of the movie itself. It's just, hey, I think it actually is a good movie. I think it's well done. It's a well done version of a template that I think is like deeply flawed. So it's
Yeah.
like it still has the issues that I find with these films, but I think they did a lot with it. But I think you're right. I think it's some of the evaluating the success, because I think it is a success and it's not a success, depending on what the goal is. Like
Right. Right.
it obviously it made money. The people, a lot of people obviously enjoyed the movie and gave it high marks. People talked about the movie. It was in a mainstream theater and did decently. I think it was like third place on the opening weekend. So like in that sense, it is a success. The thing that I feel like the nuance comes like the cinema score of an A plus, like in some ways, at least to me, like, I actually see that almost as a negative. Like that's to me, that's sort of a sign that like it's not reaching a wide audience. Because if you look at, I think I forget the exact number, cinema score. I think there's only been about 28 maybe A plus cinema scores like in the history of them doing this for like 50 years, and like 60% of those are faith-based films.
Mm-hmm.
Like think of all these great films like throughout the past, like almost about half the scores have been faith-based films, and like some of those films aren't even as good as Jesus. Like films
Yeah.
that shouldn't objectively get an A plus,
Right.
based on like just like a critical analysis, like do. And I think the reason that is because like very narrow demographic.
It's sort of the preaching to the choir syndrome.
Yeah, it's very much the choir, and like the Christian choir is notoriously the least critical audience when it comes to movies. Like they're the least likely to, which is like the same like the audience scores. Like if it's about Jesus, they're just not the type to necessarily be like, it's a C. Like I like the message, but the movie was cheesy. Like most Christians tend to, hey, we need to support this because we affirm the message of it and we want it to do well. So we know the world's gonna persecute the score and give it bad ratings, so we need to give it 100%. Like almost as like moral duty to like support it. That like that in that sense, like the fact that the scores are so high almost indicates that like, hey, this is like people are enjoying this, but like it's the choir, it's Christians that are enjoying it. Like, I don't think wide, and I think even like the box office, the fact that it did so well in the first weekend and then like kind of nothing after indicates that like a lot of Christians went on opening weekend. Yeah. And then like it just sort of faded into obscurity a bit. But like, I don't know, what do you, is that way too cynical of me?
No. I think that's an accurate representation of it, because I think that is the thing. It's like there's that preaching to the choir syndrome where you make these movies and you have a very committed audience that wants to go see it. Then they're going to go see it. They're going to rave about it, whether or not like it's almost irrelevant how the movie was, like if it was an actually good film or if it was well acted or directed competently or not. Like that's almost secondary, and I would say it probably is secondary to whether or not like the message of the film is something agreeable to Christian audiences, and that is way more of a determining factor than anything else to do. It could almost just not be cinema. It could almost be anything.
Like even in my review, I share like in my theater there was a scene, and I think some of the spiritual, especially at the end of the movie, I think actually started to hint at like the more messy kind of nuance than the movie ends. But there's a scene that I didn't think was actually setting it up very well, and like it seemed very forced. This is an emotional teaching moment, and like several people in my theater, like in front of me, like verbally were like amen, like they were all shouting. Like
Yeah.
to me that was sort of like embodies why these movies are tricky to like evaluate. Of like, are we like affirming the movie that okay, this scene was set up and acted and like natural to the characters and was earned, or are we affirming that like the gospel is powerful and Jesus is Lord, and like we're affirming like the truth of the message,
Yeah, I mean,
rather than like that the movie itself is doing that well. Like,
yeah, I think a better like maybe metric would be like, was this a good sermon or not? And it's like if it was a good sermon, then it's getting an A plus, and if it wasn't a good sermon, it's not getting an A plus. And so like that's almost a better like read of a movie like this, because it almost has nothing to do with cinema, I think. And it's not to be like I'm sure obviously competent people made the movie, and it's not to like downplay their abilities to make a film, but it's like as far as audiences go, like I don't think anyone that this was made for really cares at all about like filmmaking or storytelling. Like I think it's strictly like, what was the message? Can I affirm it? If so, yeah, green light. And the problem with that is it's sort of this like self-fulfilling cycle. It's like we made this film for this audience. Like it's clearly made for the Christian audience. They loved it. We made a bunch of money, and we're going to make another one for this audience again. And so you can kind of be in this bubble of like, hey, we're doing great. Like faith-based films are they're just amazing, and they just get rave reviews. But it's like within this insulated bubble of an audience, and you're not really like breaking through to like cinema in general, or the population in general. It's like so pigeonholed.
Like I think that's why I don't necessarily feel guilty about being like the slightly more cynical Christian when it comes to these sort of movies.
Yeah.
Like most people that I know have been kind of raving about how powerful this movie was. Like it seems like I'm more on the outside of like, well, like was it a good movie? Like, like if you change the faith in this movie to not be Jesus, to be any other faith, like would we still affirm that like, hey, like I don't agree with it, but like the acting was cool, the story was compelling, like, or are we purely affirming that the message itself is powerful? But like the problem with like the A+ cinema score and like the 99 audience rating is like, because again, I don't blame the filmmakers. I think the filmmakers are talented. I think the reason we have these types of movies is because of the audience. Like it's because of the funding, and like I've been in like the behind the scenes of like some of these meetings and stuff, and like talk to script writers, and like there's expectations based on like this is what people clearly want, so we need to make sure we check that box. And
right.
The problem with like just sort of affirming any faith-based thing is like what's to make them inspire anyone to like think differently when it's A+, 99%. Lots of people went and saw it in the first day. Like again, I think it's obviously there's a lot to it. I think it's good that there is options like that, and like, I think a lot of Christians were inspired. I was inspired. Like I've been thinking about the message of it. I think I'm glad this movie exists.
Yeah.
I'm not at all again. I hope it does really good. I hope lots of people enjoy it. I just think some of the conversation can be helpful to like think a little more nuanced of like, but what are we going for? Like, is the goal getting Christian butts in like theater seats, or is the goal to like contribute to cinema? Because I think we're sort of aiming only at the first, and like I don't think we're necessarily doing the latter. But hey, let us know. Are we just sort of the jaded, cynical people that just hate anything, or is there something to it? How should we approach these films? And hey, if you've seen Jesus Revolution, I encourage you guys to share your thoughts on the film itself, and kind of what some of the stuff you thought about that. But another thing that I think lots of people will definitely have thoughts on, kind of an interesting story that isn't maybe like directly related to faith in Christianity. It's more of like a wider cultural thing, but I think definitely has relevance to like it's something that Christians should be thinking on, and that is the modernization of classic books. So this thing's kind of it's like a few like little pebbles down the side of the slippery slope, and quickly we are in the middle of a full-on avalanche. And this isn't necessarily a new phenomenon. There's been examples kind of going back in the last couple of years of things kind of like this, but specifically, it seems like in the last like 3 weeks, there's just been like almost every week, every couple of days, there's some new example of this, and that is this movement. Kind of inspired by so-called sensitivity readers, which I'm sure Sam Camp will have an opinion, maybe even two, on the need for sensitivity readers. But kind of based on some of the feedback of some of these readers and kind of how they felt about some of these classic books, different publishers and groups have been doing kind of some editing for this. I kind of started with Ronald Dahl, who, what are some of his books? Like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Yeah.
I'm guessing Willy Wonka, BFG. Like a bunch of this, like those types of sort of quirky kids books. That a bunch of those books, like hundreds of changes, are being made kind of for the next edition of those books. A lot of things like kind of rewriting or changing words or eliminating words, like if a character is referred to as fat and they take that word fat out, or things that might relate to like mental health or different kind of
or like their parent, like. I think there was one about how he described some lady. I think it was like super ugly, or I forget the word that was used to like dog face or something, some slanderous word to describe the looks of a woman, and that was taken out.
Yeah, anything that might kind of seem like slightly mean-spirited, or something that someone might who belongs to that category might take issue with, have started being changed. And kind of, I think it was like literally the next day, it came out that Ian Fleming, who wrote the original novels for the James Bond books, that sort of for I think it's the 70th anniversary, where they're going to re-release them, and they also had sensitivity readers go over them, and particularly with like racial derogatory stuff. Again, these were written like 70 years ago. That a lot of that's going to come out. But even if you like look at like the list of the changes, it's sort of like a popcorn bag of like, this is offensive, but like this isn't, like like the ethnic groups and like, the derogatory stuff, like it's wrong for these people, but like let's leave in the bad stuff for this group of people, and like so it just seems like it's
I'm like, what is the job description? Like, what are the requirements to become one of these sensitivity readers? That's what I want to know.
I would say high sensitivity is probably one to run the job application.
I am extremely sensitive, and I would like to read your books that may have things I disagree with. And give my 2 cents.
Like, hey, maybe that's a hidden calling that we could have. And kind of the most recent is Goosebumps. Everyone loved Goosebumps growing up. I love Goosebumps. It was always like, was there a better like library day at school when you like go to the library and see like there was like a Goosebumps book that wasn't checked out yet?
I actually never read Goosebumps. I missed that boat somehow. I know. Poor deprived child. Yep.
Hey, that explains.
I'll go back and read the edited versions and probably won't be
offended.
Wait,
maybe you missed out on some sensitive
I've
scars.
spared myself the trauma.
So they just announced like the other day that the Goosebumps books are going to be edited, and it seems like it's like in coordination with the author. Until which was news to the author. R.L. Stein came out and he was like, "Wait a minute, like I'm not on board with this. Like I don't want to change my books. Like they're fine. Like they're just they've been fine for years. Like so this whole drama. So it's just sort of been ongoing. Again, there's other examples." But I think it's a fascinating, because we've sort of touched on some of this when we talked about like Beyonce, and then
Taylor
T
Swift
with her anti-hero song, where she like went back and like self-edited her video to not offend people and fat shame or whatever she was accused of doing. So we sort of got into like some of the like current day stuff, but this is sort of sort of adjacent to that a bit of like, is this a good thing? What's the danger in like looking back to everything that came before the now and being like, well, people didn't think like we do now then. So instead of like allowing that to be different and like, hey, we grew, why don't we make them think like we think? Like, what is your, is this?
Well, I mean, there's lots of thoughts to think about this, but for one, I just think just the amount of hubris that's necessary to be like, I'm here in 2023 and I know better and have become more enlightened than everyone previous to this generation. And like, you're going to go back and like change. Now, obviously some of these they're still living and the authors are clearly not on board, but like first of all, like that just is absurd to be like, I'm gonna go change this person's work of art because we had some people who were highly sensitive read it and gave us some suggestions. Like that just seems insane to me, and incredibly like arrogant to be like, hey, we know better. And I think had the author been living now, like he wouldn't have done this or she wouldn't have done that. I just think it's insane, like on the face of it. But then, like deeper into it, it's like, I mean, this is directly from 1984, and I know that book gets thrown around a lot, but I think we vacillate between 1984 and Brave New World. Like I think those are sort of the parallel realities that we're living in, and we'll see which one wins out in the end. But it's like does no one in these meetings realize like where this leads to?
Because that is the thing of like I feel like some of the discussion, I think even how it relates to Christians is I think a lot of the discussion I've seen has got too caught up in like the trees and missed the forest of like,
yeah,
like, is the fact that like a character in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory like being referred to as like enormously fat, and now they're just referred to as enormous, like still seems kind of rude. Like that's one of the changes, and like it's like,
oh good, fat. You didn't say fat. Like boy,
I was starting to get
it was just enormous. Like I feel so much better now.
Yeah, go try that out in public and be more sensitive. I just call people enormous. Like, but like, does that change? Like do we need to be outraged? Like is society gonna crumble because like a book from the 60s had like a rude word insult description like shortened by
a three-letter word? Yeah.
Like, no, like that's not like a lot of the, and like like the like the James Bond stuff, like does removing racial terms that were more acceptable back then, like is that gonna like I just can't enjoy the book, there's just not enough racism, like
like nobody's saying
like I think so some of that I kind of getting caught up in the moment. I think the real discussion, like the more importance is recognizing the slippery slope of like, it's not necessarily that these specific changes are anything to like freak out about and like, I just can't enjoy my story without more mean insults. And then like, it's more like, where does this lead? Like sort of this mindset, both of like kind of reevaluating the past and like basically trying to erase the past and be like, we don't learn from the past. Like we just make the past learn from us. Like they gotta they gotta reflect us. Like at what point do you lose perspective of like, people haven't always thought the way we do, like for good and for bad. Like, people used to think this, and obviously we don't think that anymore. Like, I think there's also things in the past that we can like sort of like lost wisdom of like, oh, you mean like people haven't always held this one very modern, like trendy view that just came out in the last 10 years? Like,
even go back to like stuff even like 20 years ago, like the early 2000s. There's stuff that was put out back then that was like, good luck trying to get that through like the sensitivity readers today. And like, if you like even just politically, like, during the Bush administration, George W., like he was trying to like censor outlandish people on, on TV or the radio. And it's like, that was the Republicans doing it. And now it's like the Democrats are wanting to. So it's like, does no one realize that like people that like in power want to censor, and like the people that you agree with now that are pushing for censorship will not always be the people that you agree with. Like you may think, hey, this is a perfectly valid place and I agree that we should take these words out and those are offensive. It's like, great, but like, you're not going to be around forever. Eventually someone's going to disagree with other words, and it's like, what are you left with then? Like that, you may agree with the sensitivity readers today, but you won't always. Like there'll be a time.
It's a constantly moving target of like, like kind of keeping things status quo is like, there is a metric of like, hey, this was acceptable. The way people talked or saw the world, like obviously we don't know, but like to sort of try and make everything line up with like today, like what is acceptable today, and then tomorrow we got to make it. That's where some of like the danger comes in. I think especially for Christians too, like sort of like we might be walking somewhat of the same path of like, hey, you know what? Maybe we don't need racist words in old books. Like we can agree on with the sensitivity readers on that. But like, what happens when some of that, like when the paths diverge of like, well, like, saying that Jesus is like the only way. Like, I know a lot of these classic authors like grew up in a Christian culture and stuff, like, but that seems sort of like very exclusive and like very like bigoted. Like, who are they to say? What if you're like a Muslim reader and you're reading a book and it says like Jesus is the only way, or like they're praying to God and it's not open? Like, at what point does it like? Well, now we need to like change the books and make it like any kind of reader. This is very vague and like not to get like too like tinfoil hat down, but like especially in a digital world where they can just do it, whether you like it's not like a physical book where they like people like show up at your door and start crossing out words. Like it will just like change on your tablet one day, and like you won't even know unless you're like an eagle eye. Wait a minute, I don't remember it saying that. Like I feel like this is something that is worth now before we get down the slope. Being like, hey, I don't think this is. Maybe it's okay to have the past like be the past and not have everything kind of.
And I don't know where that comes from. Like that obsession with like we need to make the past fit into our current state of how we view the world. That just seems kind of. I don't know. It seems odd. Like that people obsess over like trying to make the past fit into their current ideology. Like it just seems like a. I don't know. Maybe like a wasted life if that's your focus. It's like we've got to make all this stuff that came before fit into what we believe now. And it's like, and I think what you see is like people who are criticizing works of art from the past likely are ones who have not made any art or will make any art like of today. And so it's so much easier to just tear down stuff that came before than it is to like build your own thing. And so I think people who are so offended by, the way people thought 50 years ago, it's like, well, like just like it has no bearing, I don't think, on a person other than like, wow, like that's crazy that people thought that back then.
Yeah, well, it's like we've lost the ability to be like, that's a thought that I don't agree with, and it's bad, and I think differently. Like it's sort of like,
and it's like, and I don't have to like
put
that on myself.
I don't have to agree. I don't expect the dark ages people to like they did lots of they were like using leeches and stuff as medicine. Like they did lots of dumb stuff in the past. Like
they would just like
that was the time that they were in.
They would just bleed you to like and
it's like
you have an ailment.
Well, just it's just like the inability to be like, hey, we just don't agree with that. Like that's the past. It's a good thing we have those so we can see that we've changed.
Well, and it's like, and you see like there's iterations of things. Like stuff has progressed so much from where it started, but it's like it had to start somewhere. Like people had to figure out how to make a combustion engine. It's like, well, now we have these fancy electric cars. It's like, well, like you don't just go from nothing to like fancy electric cars. It's like there's a path that you walk, and I think it's worth knowing where you came from and where like society comes from, and I think it's helpful to see. So it's like if we didn't know about like Hitler and World War II, then like I think it's way easier to just go down that path again, because it's like, well, hey, this seems a good idea. Yeah, we should have certain people who are like trying to control everything. It's like, well, like that just seems completely
the value
insane.
Of the past is that it's the past and it's not reflecting. So I do think as Christians it is something, and I have an article which is probably coming out later this week where I get into this a bit more, but just sort of I share it in there too as well, like valuing the past as being like perspective is very built into like the Christian faith. Like you sort of need that. But hey, let us know what you think of that. Does it concern you at all? Is it much to do about nothing, or is that something that I think Christians should be prudent to keep their eye on and push back against and kind of preserve the past as being the past? But one thing I know rarely requires sensitivity readers or listeners because everything that comes out of it is just purely edifying joy. The next segment of our show, we have Host Corner. So I thought I would use my minute to give a little bit of a TED Talk, a public service announcement. So they just announced AMC Theaters just announced that they are releasing AMC branded popcorn. You can buy it from the store. You can pre-popped if you're just that lazy and can't wait for 2 minutes to pop your own popcorn. There's options for you. It seems like everyone online is going crazy about this. Everyone's so excited for movie theater popcorn, which is just a good time to remind everyone that probably nothing in this world is more overrated than movie theater popcorn. It's gross, it's salty. The fact is that movie theaters are the one place in society where we don't feel guilty about just putting copious amounts of butter on our popcorn. We just drench that sucker until it's like almost a liquid. So we think we like it. We think we like movie theater popcorn, but in reality, we just like the taste of butter. Butter tastes good, and wherever you find it. The popcorn itself, hey, try not putting butter on it, and you will see what I mean. That thing will dry your throat out very quickly. So hey, if you feel like it, no shame to you, but let's maybe pump the brakes on how much we celebrate movie theater popcorn, and just maybe stick with some of the original store-bought stuff. But what about you? I know you don't go to the theater that often.
I don't.
I
mean, once
a passionate opinion on this, but
yeah, I'm a biannual moviegoer. Theater goer. Yeah, I would have to agree on one, that butter makes everything better. I can fully support that. And two, yeah, movie theater popcorn is probably one of the grossest things on the planet. I mean, maybe not the grossest. That's maybe an exaggeration. But like it's way overrated.
All that being said, because it was just my birthday this week, and I am an AMC Stubs member, I get a free jumbo popcorn for my birthday.
How many pumps of
so I am,
butter are you going to?
I am going to a movie to do. I'm 65. I'll be doing a review for that tomorrow. So I might not be a big fan of it, but I am a fan of free things. So I would definitely be stepping my face with some AMC popcorn.
Free overrides, horrible.
And with every bite, I'll be like, overrated.
Overrated. I'm glad I didn't pay for this.
Needs more butter.
Yeah.
But kind of our next story, and probably will be the last one we get to. I don't know if we'll get to the final. I'll get to some Mandalorian stuff. Maybe we'll bump that to next week.
When there's more episodes to talk about.
When
I've
Sam
actually watched
catches up
all of them.
on his television. Because there's some interesting religious, spiritual stuff going on in the Mandalorian, which is crazy. Hey, some of the best faith-based entertainment we got on television these days.
This is the way.
Star Wars. This is the way. But maybe another story to get into, and then we'll see if we have time. Monty in the chat says theater popcorn is necessary for the smell alone, and I will grant that.
Okay, yeah, but you don't need to have it in order to get the ambiance.
Yeah, you don't need to pay like $16 for like a medium popcorn.
Let some sucker do that, and you can enjoy the smell, the aroma as it wafts up the theater.
And hey, especially if you're at my AMC theater, there's enough like popcorn that the janitors leave on this dirty, sticky thing that hey, you still get the smell, whether you pay for it or not. But kind of another story thing that's been going on that again I think has some direct relevance for Christians, but I think opens up a larger conversation that we can kind of get into. Our good, quickly becoming, I would even call him a friend of the show.
Hero of the faith.
A hero of the faith. Joshua Bassett, who I had never even heard of until a couple weeks ago, and now it's our next segment of the show. We got
the Bassett Hour.
So hey, he's become one of our guys, but he's been on this. If you guys remember from a couple episodes ago, he's been on this roller coaster faith journey where he just sort of out of the blue tweeted out Jesus is Lord or something, and everyone thought his account was hacked, and then a video went viral of him getting baptized and sharing his testimony, and everyone was excited about that.
Turns out you can have a drive-through baptism.
Yeah, and then people criticized him for the church, and he's like, I didn't know anything about the church. I just sort of got baptized, that was weird. But hey,
so many questions.
there's a lot going on. And he's been kind of criticized from all ends of the spectrum, but at least for now, guy hasn't backed down. Guy is still very much out there proclaiming his faith in Jesus. And kind of the most recent example was I think maybe 2 days ago, where he was at one of these awards. So Kids' Choice. There's so many.
Nickelodeon.
It's one of these D-level award shows. But he was there, sort of like a one themed for kids, kid themed one. And he won an award for something. So he was on stage, and he used that moment to give a short kind of testimony. So we're going to play the clip and then kind of get into a little bit of sort of the response to it and this sort of our own thoughts. So let's play the clip.
I want to say something. There are a lot of people here who are burdened, my life. And I'm here to tell you, for those of you who have lost hope, there is a very real God who loves you more than you will ever possibly know. Okay? His
So that was his speech. I'm still trying to figure out what exactly he was holding. It's like a football. I don't know what he was. What his award was for, and not at the top of our list for award shows. But again, it was a short. Like that's his testimony. That's sort of his. I don't know what all came before that. If that was his whole speech or that's just the only clip. That's the clip that's been going viral, and people had thoughts on it. I was shocking. People on social media.
You don't say.
they had a thought or two.
What did the internet have to say about our good friend Joshua?
Lots of Christians, obviously, we're very celebrating this. It's like, we don't normally get those types of speeches from awards show stage. So that's exciting. Of course, other people were criticizing it, and I do want to. I think there's several angles to come at this sort of. What do we do with moments like this? But at least one of them is, I think it exposes double standards, like on both sides of the, not the aisle, but like the spectrum of how do we feel about award show speeches? Well, that depends on what they're saying. We either love them or they're the worst thing ever and shouldn't do them unless they're saying what we want to say. But kind of some of the double standards, which has been kind of ironic because we get so few of these like Jesus is Lord acceptance speeches. Like normally people are very on board with like celebrities like proclaiming their, like at least people in like the secular Hollywood culture. But hey, people aren't necessarily on board with the new Jesus version of this. And even like I was just like scrolling through the comments under the viral video, and like one of the comment exchanges that stood out, I thought was very revealing, was one user says, "Y'all, what's wrong with him loving God though?" To which Eve 6000 responds, "Nothing. It's his attempt at grooming kids to follow his beliefs that is wrong." And if you're not familiar with who Eve 6000 is, she was a contestant on the Drag Race or whatever. What's the show? Drag.
I'm
Red's,
not.
the one you were watching on the airplane the other day. One of those drag show kind of contestant, the Canadian version of that. She was a contestant on that, and like since then has become sort of this like spokesperson. Like she's out there very much on like promoting like the drag story hours at public university, like the stuff that Kirk Cameron's pushing back against. Like, she's the one that's like, we need to have more of these. Like kids need to be exposed to drag story hour, and like. But now it's like, but if you're talking about Jesus, then like, don't be grooming kids. Don't be pushing your beliefs on kids, unless it's to dress up in drag.
I see the irony now because I was not familiar with Eve 6000, and so that makes a lot more sense. Like
so it is interesting. So there's clearly from like the secular perspective, there's been and there's other comments like that. Like, it's like, we love when celebrities like push their views unless it's Christianity. Like, then don't let kids think for themselves. And like obviously the other maybe like the more grumpy side of me is like Christians notoriously just hate people. Like we constantly push back against celebrities using the stage to like proclaim their views. But then like once someone does it for Jesus, it's like, that's so powerful. We need more people. Like it's like, so are we?
So is it powerful or is it like, is it dumb and you hate it? Like,
what's your? Are these things good? Like, is there double standards?
I mean, there are double standards. I think if you want to celebrate it, celebrate it. If you don't want to celebrate it, don't celebrate it. Like, I don't know. Like, it's one of those things. I think really all it is a litmus test to like what your priors are. Like, and so like have somebody do this and then like you'll just see the like. The Red Sea splits, and it's like all the people who hate it on this side, all the people who love it on this side, and then have someone give an acceptance speech and thank Planned Parenthood, and then the sides reverse, and it's like, like I don't know, it's just one of those things where probably the best thing would be to just thank your agent and the people you worked on the movie with, and be grateful for your award and just get off the stage. But I can understand people wanting to have their 2 minutes to sort of say something, but at this day and age, it kind of seems irrelevant because it's like, well, if you have something to say, like, you have Twitter, like you have social media. Like it's not like, years before where it was like that was the only time we heard from celebrities was like at their acceptance speech.
Yeah, it's like the platform now is not just literally the platform. Like,
yeah.
where it's like he's been doing videos, and I think it's in some ways it's almost like Kanye West 2.0. Hopefully it has a different ending, but it seems like he's sort of doing like these pop-up now of like I saw on his Twitter, like in some city he was in, he did some kind of pop-up worship testimony hour, and like just invited people to come, and like kind of what Kanye was doing before things went off the rails of like his like Sunday church of where he'd just sort of show up, and like so it sort of seems like he's doing that again. I think I don't know him, like, and like I think it's cool from what I can tell that he's out there sharing this, and like I think he has an influence, and like I'm glad there's a voice proclaiming that. I just my like the gear that always grinds me is always the double standards of like, it's sort of like so like our celebrities on the stage, like should they all just shut up and not share it unless they say what we want? Like it's sort of I sort of fall in the line of like either be okay with this and also just sort of groan and accept that other celebrities will share their own stuff, or else sort of be consistent that like maybe celebrities, maybe we just don't need celebrities telling us what they think either way. Like, at least in that kind of platform. So I don't know. I don't know if that's just me being grumpy again.
No, I think that's, and we've sort of talked about it in the past before, but like, I think celebrities are gonna be celebrities and sort of do what they want to, and I just think, just don't get bent out of shape one way or the other. Like, just realize that that's a person that has views and they're gonna express them, and like, you don't have to like hang all of your hopes and dreams, on a celebrity who has, come to faith in Christ. Like that's great. Celebrate them, but it doesn't mean that like they're the new Apostle Paul or something like it.
Yeah, and I feel like we were
relax a little.
I feel like people have been burnt so much by like the Kanye Yee stuff that that it sort of is a good time to be like pray for him, be excited about him. Like hopefully it's very sincere and he uses his impact. Like I'm happy for that part, but like you were saying, like, but maybe don't like just because he has a platform doesn't necessarily mean like, there now Hollywood's ours for the taking. We got Mr. Bassett on the stage at the kids show. Like, I don't know. Like,
I wouldn't put a whole lot of stock into it. Like, I just, be happy for him, pray for him and all that. But it's like, I don't know that there's going to necessarily be a lot to come out of this, and that we should be like quick to sort of like elevate people like that. Let's like, I don't know, give it a few years and let's see where it goes, and like, let's see what happens. And so I think it's, it's probably too soon to tell, but, I think we just need to kind of chill out with the, like, celebrating Christian celebrities, especially like newly converted Christian celebrities. So, take it for what it is.
Yeah. And also I think just being honest with like the fact that we are holding double standard, or that we are saying things, or that like, that we're okay with things when Christians do it. Like we do that with athletes and stuff all the time. Like, we hate when they speak out, just stick to sports. And then like one of them is like after a big game, it's like, and I want to thank my Lord Jesus. And it's like, preach it. Like,
we need more of this.
We need more athletes that, and like, again, I think it's cool. I think it's fine if you want to celebrate that. Yeah. But I think there just needs, but in some ways it exposes our lack of willingness to like, to listen. Like, we don't want anyone to talk unless they're saying what we want.
Yeah, I mean, everybody wants to be on a winning side, and I think that's what this sort of comes down to, like the culture wars, all of it. Like, people want to like win at something, and so I think that's the tendency is to like, we got to pick our guy, and like, we got to like, who cares? He's maybe a terrible person, but like, if he just wins, then wouldn't that be awesome? And so I think from everything from Christianity to like, your political affiliation, all of that, I think people just have gravitate towards like wanting to like cling on to their person and like at all costs, like, I'm team whatever, and just sort of ignore the rest of it, and never mind the double standard, never mind the hypocrisy, like, as long as our team wins, like, and so I think maybe just think about that a little more.
Yeah, and I think just be more open to, hey, people are going to share their opinions. don't have to agree with everything, but just allow people to do that, or else don't allow them to do it. But at least try and be consistent. But as far as things that come out, to let you be aware, I am probably in a couple of hours seeing the easy front runner for movie of the year. I review a lot of movies here. Not a whole lot of them I ever get all that excited about having to go see. 65, a movie about Mr. Kylo Ren fighting dinosaurs in like our past, but his future or something like that. Probably makes
Sign
more
me
sense. That is.
I may have to break my 2-year fast and go see that one.
Yeah, like wonky looking special effects. This thing was made in a factory for me. I am the target audience. I'm already going to put my audience score at 100%, A+ cinema score. I don't even need to I just know this.
Just based on the trailer.
Just based on the trailer. I made my wife watch this on my phone and just revel in how awesome it was going to be. But I'll be going to see it alone because she was not very interested.
But is it the producers of A Quiet Place as well?
I think the writers of A Quiet Place, which is like one of the best horror thrill movies that we made in years. So and this thing is going to blow me away. This is going to be the best movie ever. But hey, join tomorrow on our channel Friday. We'll have a movie review for this movie where I will be raving about how it's such a great movie. So if you guys are interested in great movies, I encourage you to check that out. We also have some like articles and things. Again, just go to thecollision.org. Got a whole lot of stuff, like a guest post that we just posted, and some other kind of news articles. So always lots of stuff going on. Any kind of final thoughts for us with?
This is a great time to the books that you find great and classic and interesting. Get them in physical copy because you never know when they'll be edited, and then they won't be the books that you grew up loving.
And physical books smell good. So hey, that's all.
And who doesn't want a library full of books?
Yeah,
like,
and they make you feel pompous and conceited. But hey, one thing guys for joining us. We actually won't be here next week. I'll be filming some videos for Book Half coming out. So we're taking another week off.
Surprise.
But then we'll be back and we'll have lots of episodes. So hey, hope you guys will join us there. But thanks for watching, guys. Stay safe and continue to collide through your world for Christ.